everyone, it's Emily Fox. Today's video is going to be all about the books that I've currently read from Stephen King. I believe I have about 7 full-size ones. There are 2 short stories. I'll mention them quickly at the end, but I wanted to focus on the full-size that I have finished, kind of sharing you my opinion, which ones were the best ones, the worst ones in my opinion, and just talk a little bit about them. I originally wanted to try and wait until I had read all of them, but I realized pretty quickly it's never going to happen, / it keeps coming out with so many so quickly that I can't even keep up. So let's go through them one by one. This video is going to be spoiler free unless I say so, but I think I will just instead be a little vague, or I'll warn you. We'll see how that goes. I'm gonna start with my favorite because I'm constantly asked which one it is. The Long Walk by Stephen King. I don't know why I said that. It was originally written under Richard Bachman. I believe he wrote 4 under that name, and I have read 2. So this is the first one I did read. Love it so much. I don't hear that many people mention it, or it's really part of their favorite ones. Maybe it's because it's not really his usual style. Maybe that's why I like it so much. But this is more of a dystopian, kind of disturbing book instead of being really paranormal. In this world, you are following the Long Walk, which is essentially an event that happens once in a while where 100 teenage boys walk until one last man is standing, and that person gets to get one wish, whatever they want, and they will get it. So as you can imagine, this event lasts for a couple of days. They can't sleep, they can't stop for any reason, and after a few warnings, whenever they can't keep up, they are shot in front of everyone else. So essentially, this was a physically and mentally exhausting book to read. It is fairly short. This is a mass market paperback, but my edition has just under 400 pages. I wasn't able to put it down / I also kind of wanted to put it down because my legs were literally hurting for the main character. I really enjoyed how you can follow his slow descent into madness, and you really feel for the characters. My only issue was the ending, which is usually the case with Stephen King's endings. It's just not his forte. I also wish there had been more information about how The Long Walk had started, basically more about the dystopian world. But with that said, still a fantastic book. I totally recommend it if you are looking to pick up a book by him. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it is my favorite so far by him. And the second book that I've read by him that was written under Richard Bachman is The Running Man, which I believe became a movie, and I think it's Arnold Schwarzenegger that is in it. I haven't watched it yet. But this one is also a completely different style compared to his other stuff. This is also kind of a dystopian futuristic world where, as a way to entertain people, there is a TV show called The Running Man, and basically that person has to get to something. Basically, in this one, you're following a man who has to go save his daughter, right? Yes, basically he's desperate for money, and he decides to participate into this TV show, which is extremely intense and violent, and he is being followed, and there's basically a bunch of people trying to kill him, and he has to try and survive X amount of time. That way he can get enough money to help his daughter. It's, again, very exhausting. I really did enjoy it. If you're someone that really enjoys action-packed movies, for example, this would be a great recommendation to, get into books that way. It was also a very quick read, but again, not really his usual style, but I did really enjoy it. The next one is something that was recommended as my first read by him, what to pick up first, and I did that, which was a mistake. The Gunslinger, the first book in the Dark Tower series, and this was the most horrible book I've ever read. I do understand that this is part of the universe that he created and how basically all of his books are kind of in the same world. They're all kind of linked. And my issue is that this was so painful and confusing and long-winded, and the amount of adverbs in it was just killing me. And I understand that now Stephen King came back and admitted that this is probably his worst book and everything, and he wrote this when he was like 19 or something. So it makes sense that now his writing style has completely changed. With that said, after reading that one, it took me a long time to decide to try something else by him. So personally, it would not be my recommendation, how to start with him. Apparently it gets so much better, but it's been 3 years now, and I have yet to continue because I just can't convince myself. I think my main issue was that, when you're reading a book and it feels like the author is trying to sound like he's really great at writing, and that I wasn't sure if some of the choices in the writing style and everything were done on purpose, if it was actually meant to be, you know, confusing because, you know, he's in the desert, maybe it's affecting him, but it just felt like it was just badly written. Just every time I say these things, people go nuts in the comment section. Anyway, I gave this 1 star, I think. I absolutely hated it. I can't recommend this. I know every time I say that, people say to continue. Again, I probably will one day, but again, it's been 3 years and hasn't really tempted me yet. It does feel like this is an unpopular opinion, but I think that people tend to give this one 5 stars after they've read the whole series. And that's why that they're, you know, attached to it and they think it's great, but on its own, I think it was really terrible. Another book that tends to be recommended a lot by him is It, which the movies are out. I have yet to watch them. I need to do that in October because, I mean, fall, right? I went into this knowing nothing except clowns. I did not grow up, you know, watching the other movie. I was not traumatized by clowns. I'd never understood the fear of clowns. I really enjoyed how great Stephen King is at reminding you of your childhood fears. Like right in the beginning, some of the scenes really scared me. I was like, wow, I was scared of that as a kid, you know, like trying to turn on the light in the dark type of thing. He's really, really great at describing that. I really got attached to characters. I absolutely hated so many characters in here, the bullies. Yeah, I do think that overall it is a good book. My issues with it is that, one, this is so freaking ridiculously long. The way I got through it was to give myself a goal of 100 pages per day, and that's the only way I was able to actually finish this because damn is it long. I do feel like some of the stuff wasn't necessarily necessary. There's a lot of background about it, how it started and everything. It's also kind of difficult to get into because after that little scene about the kids, it goes back and you're seeing the six or 5 main characters and you're seeing them now, and then there's a lot of back and forth between now and then. And you are presented them like one after the other, so you're like really getting into the story and then you switch and then you do that so many times that you start being overwhelmed with the amount of characters, but eventually it gets better. But in summary, if you don't know, you're following a group of friends who, again, there's a lot of back and forth between the now and then when they were kids, kind of encountering it and facing their fears or surviving things. And I think this is the only one I really want to talk about a spoiler. I will keep it extremely vague, so feel free to move forward if you don't want to hear anything. I hated the ending, first off, like as always. I feel like it ruined the whole book. And I absolutely hated that scene, like about here in the book, which was literally the most ridiculous thing I've ever read, which actually, you know what, I will include a spoiler, so once the book is in the background, you can come back if you don't want to hear it. But what was the point about the freaking gangbang with 11 years old? Like, it makes no freaking sense. The whole, like, children leaving their childhood. No, it was not necessary, and there's no way you can convince me that I will ever want to reread Stephen King explaining the orgasm of a freaking kid. No. Just no, pas nécessaire, no. So I think that those issues towards the end really brought the whole book down for me. I really enjoyed how disturbing so many of this stuff is. He's like so great at making you feel so uncomfortable, but I think that the ending in that scene is just really the weakness of the book. Another one that is quite often recommended, The Stand. I am a huge post-apocalyptic fan, and this is like probably the main one that people always recommend or tell you to start with, which seriously might be a bit big if you're just starting to get into that genre. I actually listened to quite a bit of this as an audiobook. It really helped me go through it. I think I gave this one about 3.5, 3.75. Because the strong points are really, really strong, and then the low points are really, really low. I have a complicated relationship with this book. I really enjoy the characters. You really get attached to them. Clearly, in such a big book, you have time to. I didn't like the obsession about... Okay, I do think that some of the things feel very dated. I'm obviously reading it through the lens of like, was it 2018 I read this? So it obviously affects my review a bit, but I felt like some descriptions about slight spoiler, I don't think so, but you know, again, feel free to skip 10 seconds forward. I think the obsession about virginity to give yourself to the evil thing was just the fact that I still remember this a year plus later. I think whenever people talk about this, like the worst part of it is still the ending. We're noticing the pattern, huh? I do think the ending was like schling schlang, happened so fast and you're like, really? Like I literally remember going back on the audiobook, I'm like, did I miss something? Did I like not pay attention for a second? Yeah. So I feel like for such a big book, I have very little feelings about it. And again, it's usually a topic I'm really into. I have to say, the really strong point about this book is the beginning. I was absolutely fascinated by the way he explains how disease spreads, because post-apocalyptic, this one is a disease that kills most people. And yeah, that was the best part in it, and the weakest part was the ending. The middle was okay, you know, there were some good points, but yes. So whenever I explain this book, basically I'm always a little shocked how lukewarm I am about it. It was good, I'm glad I read it, I can say that I read it, but I have a feeling that if it wasn't written by Stephen King, I wouldn't really think twice about it. I do feel like people will disagree about that. I think this is my second favorite by him because I feel like this one, the ending is not weak, or at least not as weak as his other books. So, Pet Sematary. This was weird, but in a good way. There's a cat on it. If you don't know, really, you're following a family that moves to a new house, and their backyard kind of links to a really weird place where people go bury their pets and they come back to life, kinda, weirdly. And things happen afterwards, which obviously no spoiler. Things were really interesting, things were really weird, I was incredibly uncomfortable and just weirded out, and once again, the ending was actually not weak, which is surprising by him. So yes, I think that if I had to choose my two favorites, it would be The Long Walk and then it would be Pet Sematary. So if you're looking for the perfect read right now for the fall, I would highly recommend this one. There is a movie coming, or is it out already? The movie is out. Ooh, I'm so out of it. Clearly, I have not watched it yet, but I need to do that too. I have a lot of movies to watch. Another humongous brick by him. Technically, it was also written with one of his son. This one is Sleeping Beauties. It is the most recent book, yes, in this video. Once again, I have pretty complicated feelings with this one. The topic, the premise, very intriguing. Basically, a disease starts spreading and affecting only women. It puts them into cocoon. Yeah, they kind of develop a cocoon around them, and if you try to wake them up and remove them from the cocoon, they will attack you, kill you, and go back to sleep. So obviously, women are trying to stay awake, and there's a lot of drama happening, and you're following a bunch of those characters. A lot. I mean, a lot of characters. I believe there's a list of them at the end or something, because it got so much. Maybe it's in the beginning. Yeah, it's in the beginning, because there are so many, like literally pages, that you need sometimes to go back and reference. One of the stories you're following affects women in a prison, so you can imagine how dramatic things get. You meet one of my most hated characters of all time. Actually, you do meet some in here too. It has so many characters that drove me mental. But you find one in this one too. What's his name? Dun Peters, I think? I remember that name. It's not even there, and I remember it. That's how much I hate that dude. A piece of poo, like total. If you want to rage and throw your book across the room, you need to read the book just for him. I do feel like things got a bit, again, long-winded, and that I always have a hard time explaining this, but I felt like it felt a bit like, is it virtue signaling, the word? Like, I am absolutely a feminist. What was it when someone called me an aggressive feminist? So, like, literally no shame about it. However, I felt like sometimes it felt a bit like White Knight. Like, it went too far, and I was like, okay, I get it. You're not, you know, sexist. I wish I had, like, put post-it on the scenes, but it sometimes felt a bit much, which put me out of the story a bit. But overall, there were, again, some horrible characters in here, and the book was good. Not amazing, not one of my favorites, but it is still Stephen King, so I guess people will still read it and enjoy it. It's an interesting premise and concept, but again, the ending was kind of weird for me, which I don't even know why I'm still saying that, because again, it is part of most of my reviews, but I don't think it's an unpopular opinion. Generally speaking, his ending are known for not being that great. So as I was saying, there are two little short stories I wanted to mention. The first one is part of a book that I have yet to finish, but I have finished the first story, which is Reach Us Something, basically Shawshank Redemption, which was freaking amazing. I have obviously watched a movie in the past, and I feel like the short story is so close to it that one is pretty much like the other. Yeah, totally would recommend it. I really, really enjoy it. That was one of my favorite books by him too. Well, stories by him for sure. Would totally reread anytime rewatch the movie. The other one, Elevation, which, you know how I mentioned virtue signaling and all that stuff? I was getting that vibe horribly in that one too. And again, it just felt disgenuine. Is that the word in English? In this one, you're following an old man who's kind of grumpy and he hates his neighbor, and his neighbors are actually lesbians. And it's not really his issue with them, but you kind of wonder if it's a little bit. It's a very conservative town, and then you can kind of get where things will happen. It feels like a Hallmark movie. But while this is happening, the old man is going through something very, very weird. It's more of a fantasy, really. I think it was categorized on Goodreads. It won the Goodreads Choice Award in the horror section, which pissed me off because I read this expecting horror, and then I got that. And the premise would have been interesting otherwise. Basically, the old guy is going through something weird. He keeps losing weight. No matter what he eats, he pigs out. He tries to put rocks in his pockets and try to weigh himself, and he keeps losing more and more weight, and he starts being scared of like, what will happen when I get to 0? So there were some interesting bits, and as always, the endings. So those are technically all the books that I finished by him, which I'm noticing right here. This is one of the ones that I did not finish, at least not yet, The Shining. I was listening to it as an audiobook. I'm currently at page 200, and I have yet to feel the urge to finish it. Feel free to convince me in the comment section. So those are the books that, again, I have currently finished by him. Basically, my opinion, obviously, just because I love it doesn't mean you will, or just because I hate it doesn't mean you will also. So please feel free to leave your review down below about any of these books. Also, if you have any recommendation on which ones I should eventually pick. I do have a list of the ones I would love to read. Actually, I do have a shelf basically just for him and his son. There are books I'm really interested in reading. The one with the number, I'll put it on the screen. I definitely want to read this. I did watch a TV show, it was great. And eventually, when I want to torture myself, I will read The Green Mile, which I have yet to feel the urge to hate myself this much. But yeah, the movie obviously is like a burn in my heart, and I really, really loved it. And one day I will also read the book. So if you have any books that you think I will really enjoy by him, please again feel free to leave them in the comment section. So this is going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe it helped you decide which one of these you should try next. Don't forget to give it a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe because you definitely don't want to miss any future videos. And I will be putting on the screen more videos by me that I recommend you check out. And I'll see you in my next one. Bye.